The AU anthem will be played. After the AU anthem, you may now be invited to sit down. So kindly stand by whilst we usher in the chairperson of the commission with the Minister for International Relations of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you.
Excellence, Madame la Ministre,
Excellency, Madam Minister of Cooperation and International Relations of South Africa, Honorable Members of Parliament, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, distinguished guests. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gali Masaharu. I am the acting clerk of the Pan-African Parliament, and I should like to greet you and bid you welcome within this chamber that is your institution. Honorable members of the Pan-African Parliament, my presence before you this morning is not according to the usual principles, and that is justified by the fact that we do not yet have a bureau, and that my presence here is justified by giving you the contents of the communication of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency President Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, and incumbent Chairperson of the African Union. Mr. Chair, being in Germany to take place, to participate in the G7 summit, I will not be able to chair the Pan-African Parliament session, whose objective is the election of the Bureau. As a result, I delegate to you the chairing of the Pan-African Parliament session. You are highly esteemed. Signed, the President of the Republic of Senegal, His Excellency President Macky Sall. Honorable members, because of this delegation that I have explained to you, with your permission, of course, I should like to invite His Excellency Mr. Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to take his seat at the high table in this chamber. Please make way for His Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, so that he can take his seat at the high table. Thank you.
Excellence Naledi Pandor,
Excellency Naledi Pandor, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of South Africa, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. by listening to the anthem of the African Union, the microphones seem to be rather very low. But just to remind maybe Members of Parliament that your voice is missing, is cruelly missing, which is the voice of the Pan-African Parliament, which should be louder in the interests of our continent.
It's a pleasure to be with you here in South Africa. But before we begin, you know that 21 teenagers tragically lost their lives over the weekend in East London. We stand in full solidarity and sorrow with their bereaved parents, the people and the government of South Africa at this time of national tragedy. So, I ask you to stand up for a minute of silence in their memory. Excellences,
Honorable Members of the Parliament, under Article 38(1) and H of the Rules of Procedure, I have the pleasure to recognize the presence of the following personalities: His Excellency Naledi Pandor, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa; Ambassador Bankole Adeoye, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the African Union Commission, as well as the African Diplomatic Corps accredited to South Africa, the Diplomatic Corps accredited to South Africa. I want to give the floor to the clerk to give us an idea of the proceedings.
Merci, Excellence.
Thank you, Excellency.
Mesdames et Messieurs, honorables députés,
Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I declare open the session of the 5th Legislature of the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. Clark, you have the floor.
C'est la parole. Après avoir
After having opened this session, the next step is the swearing in of the new members of Parliament. So I want to call upon my colleagues present here to take the necessary measures for the swearing in. And I just want to explain, and taking into account the large number of the new members of the Pan-African Parliament, we have preferred that this oath be taken by language groups and groups of 10 in order to manage time and also to accomplish this formality, which is the swearing in of the new members, a formality which will give them the status of the members of the Pan-African Parliament.
Ceci étant,
Having said that, we have taken the necessary measures in order to harmonize the list of the new members of parliament, and therefore it will be a roll call of the first 10 persons who will come here and to take oath in this plenary. Jean Wadap is there to guide the parliamentarians and to bring them up to the podium.
j'invite
I'd like to call upon Honorable Fateh Umbik, Honorable Beja Lamali, Honorable Mohammed Segres, Honorable Asma Mohammed Al-Khoja, Honorable Dali Leila, Honorable Khadija Arwa, Honorable Abdismadad Hakim, Honorable Abaini Muhammad, Honorable Yusuf Aidi, Honorable Amina Kidali Yahya, and Honorable Dr. Muhammad Aladi Yusuf. These members of parliament come from the following countries: Algeria, Libya, Morocco, and Chad.
وكذلك بروتوكول المعاهدة المؤسسة للجماعة الاقتصادية الإفريقية المتعلق بالبرلمان الإفريقي وفقا للقانون الساري المفعول.
read on your behalf? Yes, but a lead person. Yeah? Okay. Come closer to the mic.
I, Honorable Dr. Chairperson Gayo, hereby swear solemnly declare I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of people of Africa. I will be faithful and bear time allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the constitutive acts of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established, and I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
J'invite les parlementaires.
The parliamentarians in the Honorable Al-Hajj of the Gambia, Honorable Shawabu Surai of the Gambia, Honorable Maimuna of the Gambia, Honorable Suleiman of the Gambia, Honorable Jao of the Gambia,
It's okay, it's okay. Okay. I, Honorable Alhaji Mbo, hereby swear, solemnly declare that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol of the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
J'invite immédiatement l'honorable Soubasné Lucan Roy de l'île Maurice.
Roy of Mauritius, Marie Sandra Mayotte of Mauritius, Jean-Patrice Quérin of Mauritius, Addis Samata of Mauritius, Mohamed Jamal of Somalia, Mohammed Hussein of Somalia, Honorable Yasmin Hussein Mohammed of Somalia, Madame Eden Mohamed Noor of Somalia, Bernardus Suat Bui of Namibia, and they took one of South Sudan.
Pardon? Non, ils sont divisés en deux groupes. Non.
Ils sont tous venus ensemble.
Ils sont tous venus?
Vous reprenez au niveau de la Somalie. La page 3, 4. Répétez au niveau de la page 4, Somalie. Continuez jusqu'au Zimbabwe.
Je reprends. J'invite l'honorable.
I want to say Addis Samata Mail of Somalia, Ismail of Somalia, Abdurrahman of Somalia, Yasmin Hussein Mohammed of Somalia, Honorable Adel Mohammed Noor of Somalia, Honorable Bernardus Suapui of Namibia, Honorable Deitu Uyang of South Sudan, Honorable Caroline Kamusim of Uganda, Honorable Samakai Newton of Zambia, Honorable Miriam Shonya of Zambia, Honorable Kampa of Zambia, Honorable Zulu of Zambia, and Mavetera of Menyani Zulu of Zambia.
On ne sait pas s'ils vont venir plus nombreux. J'invite l'honorable Tenda.
I also call upon Honorable Tatenda Anastasia Mavetera of Zimbabwe.
Just negotiated.
Take the mic. I, Newton Samakai, hereby swear solemnly declare that I will perform my functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
J'invite à présent
I would like to invite now the Honorable Abdul Boubacar from Niger. Sorry, Honorable Yabo Thomas from Benin, Honorable Isabel Silikam from Cameroon, Honorable Dida Mohamed Amat from Chad, Honorable Ahmad Saleh from Chad, Honorable Amina Idris from Chad, Honorable Badnami Mahamadi from Comores, the Honorable Leonidas Karel Mouton from Congo, Honorable Lazare Yao Yao from Côte d'Ivoire, the Honorable Henri Bekale Ekwe from Gabon, the Honorable Fateli Martial Fouti du Gabon, from Gabon, sorry. Please, would you come and do your declaration of allegiance?
Nous,
we, members of the Pan-African Parliament, hereby swear solemnly in front of the African people and God to perform our functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of our ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. We will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And we will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God. We so affirm.
J'invite l'honorable
I would like to invite the Honorable Abdul Boubacar from Niger. The Honorable Suleiman Lemien from the Seychelles, the Honorable Sylvan, the Honorable Sheila Bessier from the Seychelles, the Honorable Wavel Voudkol from the Seychelles, the Honorable Teras Mondo from the Seychelles, the Honorable Conrad Gabriel from the Seychelles. Please, would you do your declaration of allegiance? I, Terence Michel Ingo, I hereby swear, declare that I will perform my functions
to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the people of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established, and I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
J'invite enfin
I would like to invite at last the delegates from Cape Verde, São Tomé et Príncipe. Would you please proceed to the Declaration of Allegiance? We're talking about Lucy Maria Mendes, Mário Celso de Cliche Jorge, Carmen Solange Forte, Manuel Barreto, the Honorable Américo Oliveira and the Honorable Danilzo Alcântara. Please proceed.
Je précise, il s'agit de Cap-Vert et
I am talking about Cape Verde and São Tomé et Príncipe. I, Lúcia Maria Mendes Gonçalves dos Passos, functions as a member of the Pan-African Parliament to the best of my ability and with honor and dignity in the service of the peoples of Africa. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the African Union and will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to the Pan-African Parliament as by law established. And I will promote adherence to the principles of good governance, democracy, human rights, international humanitarian law, peace, stability, and all objectives of the Pan-African Parliament. So help me God.
Excellences, Monsieur le
Excellencies, Mr. President, honorable members, distinguished invitees, and we've come now to the end of the oath-taking ceremony. I presume that unless I've made a mistake, we have now heard all the new members being sworn in, and the ceremony has come to an end, and I give you the floor for the continuance of the program. Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Honorable members of Parliament, I would like, in the name of the President of the Union, Moussa Faki Mahamat, now I would like to congratulate the new members of Parliament, and I would like to wish them all success in the exercise of their very important mission.
Je voudrais également
I would like equally to take the floor to speak the opening statement.
Excellence,
Excellency Naledi Pandor, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Pan-African parliamentarians, Ambassador Bankole Adeoye, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the African Union, members of the Diplomatic Corps, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure and a deep feeling of solemnity that I'm taking the floor today at this very important forum of the Pan-African Parliament. In this house, the Parliament hemicycle, where the voice of African peoples are expressed, I would like to greet you all in a most brotherly and warm manner. Your presence in large number in this meeting is not to be underscored, and it also proves the seriousness of the moment and also the expectations and hopes that we are having for this meeting this morning. Established under Article 2 of the Protocol establishing the African Economic Community adopted in Sirte, Libya on 2 March 2001, the Pan-African Parliament, in spite of the great hopes raised, has remained in search and the quest of its roots and its effective and efficient functionality. The Constitutive Act of the African Union, which has kept a special and privileged place of this institution in the institutional architecture of our Union. I recognize that despite this avowed will of our heads of state and has placed in the third place after the Assembly of Heads of State and the Executive Council, the Pan-African Parliament, and it has, but unfortunately has remained consultative and advisory so far. In fact, the full participation is of the African peoples in the development and economic integration of the continent through it has remained below expectations. Honorable Pan-African parliamentarians, we and our governments, in fact, have a long way to go so that you can, as the wisdom would want and dictate, that you be in the best of conditions in order to carry out your noble tasks. Do I need to stress that this noble mission is, in fact, the one that dictates the ethics and morals that should guide your actions, your behavior, and your political strategies? It is recognized that the Parliament across the world are the forum for discussions and the putting together of ideas. In fact, now and then you may have a kind of more or less heated discussions. Discuss, yes, but not to fight is the trait of the parliamentarian life. The norms and comportments that have been established may be called into question very brutally in a very unexpected manner. There is no need to remind each and everyone about moderation, of ponderation, of weighting the approach and self-control, which at all times should be the mark of the personalities belonging to such a very honorable and prestigious institution. The unfortunate events that took place in this hemicycle in May and June 2021 on the occasion of the aborted election of the Bureau of the institution has tarnished the image of this institution and that of the entire continent. The unbearable and unacceptable scenes that have been projected on the television and the social media, which have been seen by the Africans, in fact, has belittled the Parliament. In fact, it has even been carrying the mark of expression which has been a kind of disgrace for the continent. In my capacity as a representative of the Union and the guarantor of the smooth functioning of this institution, then I had to ask the suspension for the parliamentary activities until further notice, of course. In this type of situation, we always have to clarify matters, pinpoint responsibilities of each and every one. Obviously, all the parliamentarians did not participate in that event of May and June. Many of you have condemned this excess of behavior and have dissociated themselves with it, and we need to welcome that. It is also important that we recall that the return to this parliament, that you who form the cream of the African political circles, the former presidents, former prime ministers of the Senate, and representatives of parliaments and many others. And obviously, these events must have broken their heart. Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come that we turn this very sad page of the annals of this institution and start anew. So it is high time that we renew with a behavior that has always marked the Pan-African Parliament and which has been a source of pride for the African Union. It is high time for the brotherly dialogue in a peaceful atmosphere should prevail over confrontation. The resumption of the parliamentary activities, which we all wish so much, and by the overwhelming majority among you, and should lead to the election of a new bureau. This election has already been the subject of a lot of articles, writings, and with all the consultations that have been taking place here in Midrand, and in Addis Ababa, for Southern, East, and Central African regions. The positions are all known, and also the principle of rotation and the legal discussions on this issue is very healthy and useful. I want to be clear and to be sincere with you all. Indeed, it is regrettable that the protocol establishing rotation has not entered into force so far because of a lack of the required number of ratifications. And from the legal point of view, it is obviously not effective. It is important that rotation be a fundamental principle of equity and justice, and it governs all almost our institutions. You all know that the Assembly of Heads of State and Government had cancelled and, in fact, have fresh elections of the executive director of our DANEPAD, because it was, the candidate who was chosen was from the region of the outgoing CEO. So, therefore, legal formalism, which obviously is due to the lack of ratifications, should also lead us to commit ourselves to a founding principle and to get away from this controversy. When looking at the history of our continent, it's more appropriate that we stick to the essential. And the essential thing is to unite and get together on the essential and to reduce what divides us and which is divisive. We should uphold the ideals of solidarity, of harmony, so that we can better prepare ourselves to face together and take up the huge challenges that our continent is facing. Health challenges with the pandemic of COVID-19 and its serious economic and social consequences. Security challenges with the spread of terrorism, and where we have a lot of dead people and broken families, with drought and floods which affect parts of our continent, which brings about despair and destitution. Food challenge with the consequence that we see with the war in Ukraine. Political challenges, political and democratic challenges with coup d'etat, military coup d'etat, and the suspension of 4 member states of our union, and which is a result of the participation at least of 4, which has deprived the members of parliament of 4 of our countries of the African Union: Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and the Sudan, and for other reasons that your colleagues of Tunisia are not here with you. These multifaceted challenges do call upon us and appeal to the conscience of the representatives of African peoples who are here to take up these huge challenges and to go for general mobilization. And African Union cannot have the luxury of a crisis in one of its key institutions, the Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Parliament should, in fact, be involving itself in the plea and the advocacy for the continent. It is the decision adopted, that is 1128, adopted by the Executive Council and approved by the Assembly of the Union, prescribes the elections for the Bureau of the Pan-African Parliament according to the principle of rotation, in order to enable the 2 regions which have not yet been occupying the post, highest post in the Bureau. This election doesn't mean that you want to put aside the legal instruments that are in force, but we have to be objective in order to solve this problem, which has become unbearable, and it has to be respected and applied. The exceptional situation you have to have exceptional solution. It's a question of responsibility and behoves this organ of the, that is the Assembly of the African Union. In fact, it will be a great honor just to implement the decision of the Assembly. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, there will be no winners and defeated ones, those who have lost, but we need the sense of reason to prevail and have fair play and the victory of Africa that we want. Africa will not be built by majorities unless in what I call, after me, there will be chaos. So by transcending what Mandela had called the fragility of the human being, which is egoism, the lack of capacity to forgive, and the will to take revenge. And I think we need to take these into account and heed to the memory of this great man and statesman. So therefore, I want to call upon you to vote tomorrow in order to carry out your electoral duty and open a new page in the life of your institution and the forward march of our continental organization in order to allow the ideals of Pan-Africanism to triumph, which has been so dear to our founding fathers. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Honorables membres du Parlement,
Honorable members of the Parliament, we shall adjourn our session for 20 minutes so that we can take some photographs. But before that, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Anita Honong, who is the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda. You're most welcome, Honorable. I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of Gemma Nukumba, Speaker of South Sudan. You're welcome, Your Excellency. So please make arrangements for the photographs now. Thank you.